right, as a preliminary matter, this is Karen Sepatelli, the chair of the Grafton Board of Library Trustees. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Doug?
Aye.
Dana? You have to unmute yourself.
Aye.
And Martin?
Aye.
All right, and staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Beth?
Aye.
And Debbie?
Aye.
And we don't have any speakers who are here right now. And let's see, this open meeting of the Grafton Board of Library Trustees is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting, don't believe we do have public input at the end. Okay, let's see. For this meeting, all right. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and to make care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the agenda, unless I note otherwise. And we will now turn to our first agenda item, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And please wait until I yield the floor to you to state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After the members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows, and we can read any public comments received in advance of the meeting, and public comment can be conducted through me towards the end of the meeting. And I will read any public comments. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. And let's see, I see we now have Evan Brassard, the town administrator, has joined us. So welcome, Evan. Okay. The first item here is to approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I was not at that meeting, so
Okay.
I don't recall seeing them. Were they sent?
That is a good question. Let me double check that. Okay. No, I can't find those in my email with a quick look there, so we will skip that at this point and visit that next month.
Thank you.
All right. And next we have approving the bills for fiscal year 23, warrants 22 and 24. Yes, Martin?
I move that we accept the warrants 22 and 24.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I'm trying
Okay.
to look. I had a question on one of them. I remember. The yeah, sorry, it's minor, but the gas, the N-Star gas, is that for our heat?
Yes.
'Cause it seemed really low, but are we only spending $300 a month for gas, or is it just that this ends up more than once a month?
I know we have a credit. I forget if we have credit through, I think we have a National Grid credit. It could be that N-Grid is gas and like that it's opposite what you would expect.
Okay,
But yeah.
no, that was just
I
surprising.
think
So anyway,
the
okay,
big one is National Grid, and I think that's the heat. So, yeah.
thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none. We'll take a vote. Karen, aye. Doug,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Marty?
Aye.
All right, motion passed. All right, moving on to ongoing business. The next item, Beth, is a program and building grant update.
We have made some progress since last month. We did get a new distributor box installed Monday. I think they finished it up on Tuesday. And the last item for HVAC commissioning is to do, they called it mapping or maybe remapping. Reconnecting everything so that we have control in a way that we haven't for a long time over the temperatures, and it makes everything consistent. So it's currently 58 degrees in the community room downstairs and a balmy 75 in the historic reading room. And the range for the whole building is supposed to be 68 to 74. So that is the last piece, mapping to bring that back to the set point. Somebody was in from CTA to do some remedial work behind the gate at the bottom of the stairs because they had to take a piece of molding, I think, off the wall. So they made that look pretty. I have not checked to see if he put the housing that holds the lock. There was a problem with the pins that would hold that in place. That work. We're still waiting for a wheel and for the correct paneling to be inserted into that gate at the bottom of the stairs. But where the gate actually doesn't really prevent anybody taller than me anyway from actually reaching over and opening it, we're just going to in January start allowing facility rental. And we're able to roll the holds into the sorting room and lock the other areas of the building that we don't want people to go into, including the elevator. What I've heard about this gate is it keeps honest people honest. So we'll make sure that maybe we will also relocate chairs so people can't stand and reach over and pop it open and then go upstairs. We do have a program booked for January. There will be piano recital on Sunday, the 8th. So that'll be our first attempt to hand somebody a card. We'll test it in advance, make sure they can get into the building and then access just the community room and community kitchen for their event.
What is that, an evening event or is that a weekend?
It's a Sunday afternoon. So a local piano teacher rented the room as an individual for $50 an hour so that to showcase his students, most of whom are kids. There's not, I think they've used a church in the past and he was really excited to play on our baby grand.
That's great. I wonder if we can have like maybe a trustee volunteer just attend that, just to have somebody on site just to experience it.
I'm planning to go because I want to hear.
Okay.
But yeah, I would love for staff, trustees, friends, everybody to attend. Hopefully he'll provide some posters. I can put it out. I mean, it'll be a community event. It's free. So he's renting the space, but there's not an admission charge. So and there may be refreshments.
I will go. I'll check my calendar. First
Oh.
Sunday in the month of January.
First Sunday is New Year's Day. It's next week.
Okay.
I'll send out a reminder. I think-
Okay, terrific.
And
Thank you,
then,
Beth.
we actually booked a second one in June in 6 months. And this is somebody who's, saw or heard that we were getting the piano and like showed up with cash to book the room because he didn't have another venue. So that's exciting.
That's
The-
great to start getting that community room used
Get some money in.
by others. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. The building committee approved a design for the doors that were going to go in the presentation area between the community room and the kitchen
Mhm.
and for the makerspace. And then like the next day sort of had buyer's remorse at the idea of the credit that we're getting for changing the design does not offset the cost of the new doors that will work. The old doors wouldn't work. So it's about $29,000. And the next day they said, no, we don't want to do that. Explored a bunch of other options over the month that were all more expensive. So we have accepted the proposed $29,000 change order, which somebody now needs to bring to select board for approval. I'm hoping William Blake will be doing it. It's like a bifold door with an aluminum style frame and a glass panel that will have some kind of a design on the full door for the presentation area, because the idea is to shield people prepping refreshments from the meeting. The makerspace will be see-through with a strip so that you don't go crashing into or through the glass door. So that's also progress. We're checking things off. We're required to have a sign out front at the common entrance that redirects people around to the accessible entrance. So design for that has kind of gone back and forth. The signage company closed out their contract and we have to put this piece in. So this is like an after the fact thing. We got a credit for them pulling out that should cover the cost of the newly designed sign. So that's in process. And I'm up to date on my reporting to Mass Board of Library Commissioners. They are anticipating 2 more checks, one at the end between April and June this year in 2023, and then one in 2024. And that's pending the approval for other libraries on the waiting list. If you have been following in the news, you know that Westboro just failed their second attempt at a vote. So they're not getting money. And I think 2 other communities have failed, 3 have passed. So it's half and half. So we may actually get our full grant amount if they aren't paying out to other waitlisted libraries. Not that we wish that on anybody, it's tragic, but so we're expecting at least, I think, around 1.8 million this spring before the end of the fiscal year. I think that's it. Concrete pads were laid. Maybe this is capital campaign. Concrete pads are laid and they're curing. So yeah, other little projects are finishing up. And as soon as we do the final grant report, which I would suggest we do in February or by February 1st, we'll get that $1.8 million. Traditionally, the owner's project manager does it, except it's not in his contract. They took it out and delegated it to clerk of the works, and we don't have a clerk of the works. So William and I are going to work together on those last financials, and I'll probably write the final narrative. So that's on my horizon.
Okay, Beth, thank you for that. Lots of good news. Oh, Marty? Yep.
I'm wondering if it's permissible, if we could allow Mr. Broussard to make his presentation at this point,
Mhm.
rather than having to wait through all of this. I'm sure he's a busy
Mhm.
man. Is that permissible within?
Yep.
Do I have to make, do I have to
I
make a
already
motion?
spoke with Evan about that. So yes, he is going next. Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank
So next we'll have Evan, and he's going to talk about the library director contract. All yours, Evan.
Thank you. And thank you for having me and thank you for bumping me up. I appreciate that very much. So a couple things. We, Beth and I work pretty closely together. We are working on the unionization of our staff. And during that process, Karen and I have had some back and forth about staff and staff issues that come up. And it led me to think about our roles and responsibilities and talking about who should be doing what, and then just making sure that we're all on that same page. And one of those things is, it's your Board of Trustees that appoints Beth or your library director. Happens to be Beth right now. Also, there is the matter of, it appears to us that a contract was started around the time that Beth was hired, which is what, Beth, 9 years ago? Yes, 10 years ago.
3 more weeks, 10 years.
Oh, okay, so
2
9.
more weeks. 2 more weeks.
Don't jump ahead on us, Beth. It's 9.
9.
I have a pin for you that says 10 years, but you don't get it till you actually hit that mark.
Yeah.
So, there is a draft contract that doesn't appear was ever signed or executed. And I think that it's probably beneficial for both Beth and the Board of Trustees to dust that off and create a binding contract between your group and Beth. So that was one thing that I wanted to address and see if there was appetite for the Board of Trustees to pursue that. I can certainly help with that process, as can the town's Labor Council to help get that in place if that's something that the trustees want to pursue.
Yeah, Evan. Yeah, I personally was a bit surprised that 10 years has gone by and the contract was never finalized when you and I discussed that. So I think I'm speaking for everyone here that, yes, we would love the town's assistance with getting that done, a bit 10 years late. So, and Doug, did you have something to add?
Well, just a question. The draft contract you're referring to, was that from 10 years ago, or was there a draft between then and now put together?
Beth can speak to it. I wasn't here 10 years ago, but it does appear that it was started 10 years ago and then for whatever reason not executed.
So I thought, and maybe Dana remembers and Beth would, but I thought we had something with that the former TA put together maybe about 5 years ago when we were working through the different salary, compensation stuff. Was that not an actual contract that was put together?
This was when we still had Hank as the chair. We never got all the trustees to sign it, and there seemed to be resistance from the town side on my having one, because most other department heads are just department employee at will. So I dropped it.
I see.
Yeah.
And Evan, is that still the town's preference as a employee at will, or? Are other town employees under contract?
There are some, not all of them. So I think that there are pros and cons to contracting versus non-contracting. However, I think that, and this is just my opinion, that if you hired an employee under the assumption that we were going to contract and started a contract a couple of times, that I think it's something that probably needs to be followed through with. I know that I am a contracted employee, and if I started negotiations and then nothing ever happened with it, I don't think that I would feel too comfortable with that. So
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
really that's kind of where I'm coming from with this conversation. It's not so much that we have to do it or I don't have a strong desire to see it not happen. I know for some reason some people have a real aversion to contracting employees, but I don't foresee that being an issue from my end anyways.
Yeah, Marty?
So let me ask this. Who would be the party with final authority to sign a contract? with Beth.
Mhm.
So it's my understanding that it is the Board of Trustees.
Board of Trustees.
Yep. You
And
are
so
the
Board of
appointed,
Trustees would not need approval from the select board or from the town administrator?
so I would be a signatory. This is how I understand it. I would be a signatory to that contract because I'm the fiduciary person in the town of Grafton. I oversee the budgeting process, so you can't appropriate money without having me sign on to it. But if you read Mass General Law, Chapter 78, Section 11, it states pretty clearly that you are the appointing authority for that position.
Mhm.
So I believe you would be the signatories. of
You know,
that.
I understand that, but I was not, I've only been on the board like 3 years.
Yeah.
What would be the process for undertaking this? Is it basically, we can start from scratch, we can pick up with what the draft was, it's completely up to us and Beth, because she's a party, obviously.
Right. So what my recommendation would be is to take what original draft there is out there. Because obviously some work went into that to create some framework and then use that as your starting point. That's generally how I develop all the contracts that we use. I start with another one that I already did and shuffle stuff around. So I would start there, and I can certainly assist in that process of drafting that, as can our labor council.
So just to revisit, I mean, I've done a couple of contracts in my life. And what I wouldn't want to do is to go through an entire process, which might take a while,
Mhm.
and then find out that someone in the town didn't approve it and somehow it goes to sit. So I assume General Law 78, Section 11 was in existence 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
How is it that the board was negotiating this and then someone in the town said, we don't like it, and it didn't proceed? Does anyone, I mean, could that happen again?
So it's hard for me to speak to what happened before,
True.
because I wasn't around for that. And my personal approach is I try not to be involved in the politics of it. Try to be involved in the pragmatic running of government. So I don't foresee there being a large, or no, I don't foresee there being pushback. No one from my office would push back against this. I think that this is, like I said, this is a step in the right direction. So long story short, I honestly don't know, and I don't know that we're gonna know all of the details of why things got shelved. But one of the things that we can certainly do is, if this is the direction that the board wants to go, the first conversation would be with Labor Council about all of the logistics that are above our pay grades to understand in the complex world of labor law, and have him help us navigate all of that. So
So Evan, would a good starting point be for you and I, maybe, someone else also on the board, to have a one-on-one meeting with you and this labor person?
yes,
See how to do this?
yeah, and we can do that. We can do that via Zoom. We don't have to.
Mhm.
I actually, I've been here for almost 2 years, and I've never been in the same room as Labor Council. It's always Zoom,
Yeah.
and that works. That works, just fine. So
Okay. All right. So, yes, Beth?
I'm sure I can dig up what I had drafted previously, but it was most likely based on the Mass Board of Library Association, sample director contract that then went to legal to review.
Mhm.
So we could just pull that from their site.
that makes sense. And I also, having worked with this particular Labor Council, he has quite a deep trove of contracts from other communities, and so I'm sure we can pull a lot from there as well.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Evan about this? No, okay. Evan, I will reach out to you probably after the holidays here and
Okay.
see if we can get that meeting set up with the Labor Council.
Okay, and I also, it doesn't have to be right now.
Mhm.
But we should also have a discussion about the town's role versus the trustees' role,
Mhm.
just to make sure that we have a definitive understanding of who is doing what. Because I think it somewhat depends on the day and who shows up.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's going to be unique is that now that the employees have unionized, they all of that comes through me by
Mhm.
Mass General Law. So, all of the employment actions and employee complaints and things like that have to be directed to my office, even though you're the appointing authority for the director. So I just want to make sure that we flesh out those things and daily operations and who's in charge of different things, to just make sure that we're all on the same page and hopefully stave off any any rub that
Mhm.
doesn't need to be there if we've discussed that.
Very good point. I wasn't even aware that is existing here, so it's good to know. Yes, Dana?
I don't know much about this, but is the contract going to talk about, will it include information about salary, and also, is it like for a period of time?
Yes. Yeah, so most of your labor contracts are 3-year terms. And they will set out some kind of parameter as to the responsibility of the job, and also any goals that may be set, or benchmarks that the employer wants to hit, or requirements that the employee wants to have. And then they usually lay out salary for those 3 years. So you could certainly do, I've seen 1-year contracts, but 3-year is the standard.
Mhm.
So then, I mean, this,
Oh, you accidentally muted yourself, I think.
You're muted, Dana.
I know, I'm sorry, it wasn't working. So you would have to give us direction about the salary, right? Because that would come from the town's
Mhm.
budget,
Yeah, I
correct?
think we would have to have a conversation about that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then, as far as our roles and things, I guess no, so Beth is obviously, she's not, she and you at the level that you're at, you are not, unionized.
Oh, no.
So I was wondering, are we allowed, as a trustee, am I allowed to have a conversation with Beth in general, just about how things are going now or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
mean-
where the line needs to occur is generally around, well, let's use an example of the temperature, right? So Beth was just talking about our temperature woes. So employee A is unhappy with the temperature in the room. And maybe that's a very valid concern to have. And she reaches out to Karen, and she wants to file a complaint against Beth for the temperature. That is a union issue that has to get routed through me. None of it would happen in a vacuum,
Okay.
right? There's no way I'm not going to talk to the chair of the board of trustees about whatever the issue is, but there are also other firewalls that would come into place that have to do with sexual harassment, disclosure of personal information, HIPAA, all of those things. And so my intent is to flesh out where that line is, so that we all know where we're supposed to be, and at what point the trustees say to an employee, you need to go to the town administrator and the HR office, versus, let me talk to Beth and see what we can do. There's,
Okay.
and also I spent hours today in union negotiations with a different union. And so, I can tell you that we have to be very careful of what we decide to do outside of the bargaining table, because that has implications for staffing, that are often beyond what we envision when we make small changes at the staff level.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
Okay, and so, does that prohibit the staff from, like, instead of doing a complaint, does that prohibit them from just letting Beth know that the temperature is not right?
no, so they would go through Beth for all of their things. When we finalize the contract with the union, Beth will be, the library director will be the point person on
Okay.
everything, right? That's always going to be step one. Step two is always going to be me, as the appointing authority for all union employees in the town of Grafton. So,
Okay, so the
Yeah,
time when it would go to you is if a person actually makes a complaint. Someone could come into,
well,
you
yeah.
have a
'cause
discussion, just say,
I
I'm not
think
happy with the
this is-
temperature, what can we do?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
you know what, I think this is all the stuff that Evan was talking about that
Yeah.
we'll need to,
yeah.
no,
flush.
flush out with
I just-
everything.
Yeah, I
So,
just kind of wanted to know in the
Yeah.
interim that to make sure that I'm not
Mhm.
doing anything I shouldn't be doing, but
Yeah.
I think I got a handle on it now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and you can always, sorry, Karen, you can always
Mhm.
send people over to Beth and say that if they don't want to go to Beth for whatever reason, then you go to the town administrator's office. That's the safest response.
mhm,
And then we can all circle back with whatever needs to be addressed.
mhm. Yeah, very good. Doug?
Yeah, and I would I mean, maybe this is just a question for the contract committee, but I assume like the contract has things like salary, benefits, stuff like that, that's beyond our control, right? We're gonna have to rely on you, Evan, for that.
Yes.
But then things like performance reviews or goal setting, I mean, those are things that are more applicable to our group.
Right, exactly.
Great.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. All right, any last things for Evan? No? All right, well, listen, Evan, thank you so much for coming to the meeting, explaining this, and I look forward to getting this 10-year project done.
There
So,
you go. There you go. All right. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for bumping me up. I'm gonna go read some bedtime stories now. So
you mean you don't want to stay and listen to the rest of us?
but no, I'm gonna read Those Darn Squirrels for the 90th time in the last month. So
Well, listen, enjoy the bedtime stories.
all right. Thank you so much. Bye
All
bye.
right, thanks, Evan.
Have a good
Bye
night.
now. All right. Okay, that's great. All right, let's see. Going back up to ongoing business, Beth, is there anything new with the fiscal year 23 budget update?
Just that we did get a report and then an invitation to meet, to go over how to read these reports because they're
Oh.
different from the old ones. But I was out for a week and then the accountant was out. So we're still trying to connect to go over that so that I can present it.
Right,
I'll have a better idea in January.
yeah, because this is that new accounting system you had talked about.
Yeah, it was offline for a couple of days, and I guess they were worried that they couldn't recover some of the data from what people had entered. But we were able to pay bills this week. So.
Oh, good. Yep. Yeah, we have to keep the lights on. Okay, all right, which leads us right into fiscal year 24 budget update.
My fiscal year 24 budget is due in 2 weeks. So I have a draft that I'll need to send out and just get verbal feedback. We do have a chance usually to make changes and advocate for different things. What happens is usually I get it to you all to look at. If we could vote to approve it in January, even though I will have turned it in, I think that's best. You don't, and you can make suggestions and we can edit. And then usually I meet with town administration and accounting to review all the requests. A trustee could sit in on that meeting. Traditionally, one has not, but somebody could. And then the next step is it goes to finance committee and then we go and have a meeting on a weeknight
Yeah.
in March to defend the budget, and then it gets voted on in May.
Yeah.
I am using all the data from the last 6 months, like for the many unexpected charges. that we've paid out, like for security system or this inspection or that inspection, IT support. We're very tight. I think we are very tight on office supplies because they're just things that, we tried to buy ahead and then last fiscal year and in this fiscal year, and there's still things that we need. It's just a bigger building. And trying to, keep costs low so that we can increase staffing. But we'll see, there's only so much money that we can get.
Yeah.
So I'm being very judicious in what I'm looking for increases, but the teen room is a huge priority. Somebody there from 2 weeks every day.
All right, well, listen, as always, just let us know what those important dates are and we can see who's available to go with you to those meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to review it with you beforehand, or
Yeah, Doug, you've
look
helped
through it.
before.
Yeah, I've looked at it before.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping to finish a draft by the end of this week. And send it out to you all for feedback before I have to input it into the new ClearGov, which is the transparent budget software that we're using.
Okay.
Of note, I did not submit any new capital requests because of the feedback that I felt we got at, I forget if it was community preservation or capital improvement, which was that we should go first to capital campaign with some of these things and really assess the urgency and need. So where I had one town department head telling me, how could you guys not have a generator in this new building to protect your assets? I have another one telling me, look, if you get into a situation where you have 2 or 3 days with no heat and there's a danger, we can rent a temporary generator. So maybe you don't need to put in a $200,000 request. We are not actually designated as an emergency shelter or shelter in place. We have one in town. Maybe we don't need a second, and maybe that should just be withdrawn. Is it okay? Fair. So I haven't submitted anything for FY24.
All right, well, that's very interesting because you're getting two different stories from 2 different departments there, so. Yeah,
Yeah, both of whom I would say know much better than I do.
right,
And have different perspectives. And I appreciate that I have collegial input and support, truly.
right, yeah. Yeah, it's just a matter of collecting all the different viewpoints.
Yeah, and then bringing that forward and trying to advocate for our needs while recognizing there really is not enough money to go around.
Right.
And there are other departments that don't have a capital campaign, access to state aid, or ability to write grants in the way that we might.
Well,
Speaking
it's also good to know you can rent a generator. I mean, that's something I think you and I had no idea that could even be done, so. Yep, that is good, all right.
I will also
So this-
alert that we got notification that Mass Historic Commission is announcing a 29th grant round for historical preservation. The deadline is March 17th, 2023, and Dana and Doug, you're the lucky ones that I just sent the 25-page application and 67-page instruction booklet to. And I would love some help in starting to pull that together for that March deadline. Don Stevens also, I sent it to him too.
Yeah.
But that might help with our cupola issue.
Is that, Beth, is that the Mass Preservation Projects Fund?
Yeah.
I have all that information. I was gonna send it to you today.
They just
So
announced.
I wanted to try to figure out if there was some writing, well, you can talk offline, but there was a description that I wasn't sure if the library fit into it.
Okay.
So we can talk about that offline.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yep, that would be great. All right, so are there any other questions for Beth about the 23 or 24 budgets? Nope, okay. Beth, we're still with you for an IT update.
It's so nice having Evan. I got a little break.
Yeah.
IT update. So I've had comp time and vacation time and haven't been here on days when IT is here, but they have shown up, even though I'm not here to check in and see how things are going. We have a couple outstanding requests to them. We're waiting for the millwork to get started. My understanding is perhaps there's a contract that still needs to be signed before that work begins. But it's going to mean taking our computers off of the computer counter in the adult space and relocating them to somewhere else in the building so that we can still have computers available. because we still have not deployed laptops. We're still waiting for CMD to set up a server for deep freeze so that we can circulate those laptops to patrons who might not want to sit like in the public eye using a computer. And to allow us to like, you know, check out a computer to somebody who needs it for a meeting room, or even to do like a pop-up Minecraft program. We can check out 10 laptops and run that in the meeting room. So I check in every time I see them. I'm still asking deep freeze, laptop deployment, and I still don't have a way to get a daily head count, computer count of how many people hopped on our wireless and clicked, yes, I agree, to that little JavaScript that tells us how many people would log on. So I'm just estimating 100 uses a month, and it's probably low. I would love to get an accurate Wi-Fi count. Our last wireless routers, I was able to log in online and just pull that data from each individual one or as a total. So I could say how many sessions we had every day. And I just keep asking, and it's not moving.
Right. So, I mean, I'm assuming it's no, but is there any estimate of when that might be available so you can start using the laptops?
Nope.
Doug,
Is
did
that-
you have a question?
Well, yeah, is it the logging the connections, is that a problem that you can get into the router and you just don't have access to that data, or you just can't even get into the router to check if it has that data?
I can't get into the router, and I'm hearing that the routers do not track that information.
Okay.
And it's like the same kind of router that we had before. So I don't understand.
Okay.
IT is not my specialty.
And how long will the computers need to be moved for lowering that
So
area?
it depends on how long the work lasts and when it starts. I mean, my understanding was that they were starting on the 13th. Today's the 14th. Nothing has happened. So like I alerted IT to like be on guard that when the ADA project started, we weren't starting with the adult computers, but sort of like as soon as they started with, say, the presentation area and the sync encounters in the friends corner, that might, you know, tell us how long we have until they hit a different spot and how much time we have to move everything. And since nothing has started, they opted not to move them. So, I mean, they're not going to be out of order, you know, for very long. It's not going to take too long to just move them out to a different space. And it's not a huge, I don't think it's a huge hardship that they're just in a different part of the building for whether that's a week or 2 weeks or a month. I mean, it's probably going to be a 1 week to 2 week period of taking that counter down, lowering it, making a cutout, cleaning up, repainting, you know, and then they can go back. And then we're looking in other areas. But, you know, another piece is they might be working on that adult computer counter where there are computers. At the same time, they're working on the counters by the staff kitchen where that were designed as like drop in with your personal laptop. I can't like move the computers to that space because I don't quite know the order of how things will happen, except for a very general what I provided as a schedule, which is why don't you start here, because that's kind of both the most disruptive to the public, but the least disruptive to the staff. And then let's, you know, not do a staff workroom at the same time we're doing any tutor or study rooms, because staff might need to deploy to those spaces for their off desk time. You know, let's not do the presentation area at the same time we're doing the staff kitchen, because they need a space to go to use a fridge or a sink or microwave. So
All right.
but now I don't know what's happening next.
Yeah, Dana?
I just have a quick question, Beth. You were saying they can't get you're saying the issue is they can't get the deep freeze on the computers? Is that what you were saying?
I think that deep freeze is now on the computers, but they had to read the 171 page manual to learn about the software and then practice using it and get it installed.
Okay.
And then for it to work globally, because we have like a total of 40 machines, because it's also going on the public computers and the iMacs and the children's room computers. And if we have a change, like, actually, no, we don't want anybody to able to adjust the sound past this volume. We're going to go in and make that change. We don't have to go to every single computer. We do it from one workstation and it applies the change across the board. So we paid extra for this enterprise version that apparently requires its own like Wi-Fi network so that it's like kept separate from staff, so you're not changing things on staff computers and.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is the thing that it gives people confidentiality. It freezes
Yeah.
their screen and others can't see it. So it's just the
No, wait,
implementation
no,
of it that's,
No,
no?
it's confidential in that it will wipe out like your history of your
Oh,
browser.
okay.
It will delete any personal documents you might have saved, whether that's your healthcare form or receipt or your credit card bill, or, you know, that you like opened and looked at and accidentally downloaded. It also it prevents patrons from downloading and installing any harmful software. Like that's the biggest thing that it does. It won't let you make changes so that all of a sudden every computer is different and some have Word and some don't, and some have, I don't know, Roblox and some don't. Like, no, they're all the same, and all the personal stuff is wiped out and deleted, and you're not downloading and installing malicious software. Privacy screens would be something to address separately at some other point. That's
Okay.
key, like a physical thing as opposed to software.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good question.
So it's just the implementation, getting them to do it. Is that it now?
Well, it's a software rollout.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, any other IT questions for Beth?
Not questions, but I did have one more.
Oh, okay.
Townwide, we are switching from Google Suite and Gmail to Microsoft 360, Office 365 and Outlook. So we've all been given instructions to back up our Google Drives and to download and install an authentication app to our personal devices, so that when we're away from the library, like telecommuting or working from home or working on a snow day, or we want to access email, we're now going to have to log in through our personal devices to get to our work email and shares. And several staff have expressed extreme dissatisfaction at this. And I just forwarded the comments to IT. We don't have a drop date yet for when the changeover is occurring, except we have been asked to both back up things and download an app to our personal device to access our work stuff
Mhm.
remotely. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I
So
assume
that
that's like
sounds-
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I'm
no
assuming
problem.
that's like an authenticator app, like a dual authenticator. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's extremely common in all kinds of systems these days. So you almost have to have it on your personal phone. Otherwise, it could authenticate through an email, but then you got to figure out how to check your email. So
right.
Yeah.
I have an app on my phone for probably 10 different, whether it's my own, Fidelity account or one of my work accounts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
workaround
same.
is that lots of people have older smart devices and they could use something that just for that purpose. If they have a huge issue with it.
Mhm. Yeah,
But there has been pushback. And I said, well, it means that, if we have a snow day and Evan says snow day, but work from home, you won't be able to do that. You will then have to use your personal leave time because you won't be able to do your work. So that is just like a personal choice everyone's going to have to make.
Mhm.
But it has been contested.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, it
there's
has no connection, as you probably know, and no connection to the town of Grafton. It's more likely a Google thing or a
Mhm.
different. There are different authenticators out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, yeah. Just like Doug said, I use that with many of the programs that I have. I do the same thing, but Beth, it seems like this is the kind of thing you just need to have all the employees contact the municipal center about it, because it's really nothing any of us can do anything about, right?
I don't think so. No, I'm
No.
just alerting you that, it is a
Right.
dissatisfier at the moment for some staff.
Yeah,
And
okay.
thank you. I will pass your feedback on. And when Jonathan, who's our IT person, told me that it was going to happen, the first thing I said was, because he said, will people go along with that? I said, some will, and some will be very unhappy about doing that, using their personal thing for work.
Yeah.
No,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us know. So, but yeah, it sounds like the IT department's going to be the one who has to handle this.
Yeah.
All right. Final call for IT. Okay. Doug, you are up next with the capital campaign update.
I don't think I have too much. Beth already mentioned the concrete pads. So those are the concrete pads that are in the front that the benches are going to get installed on. So thanks to the
Mhm.
DPW, they did that themselves. As she said, they have to cure for like 25 days before they can start putting the bolts in so they can secure the benches down. So that's great. I'm looking forward to that. The benches are all made and everything. They're just waiting to be installed.
Mhm.
We had the capital campaign had a joint meeting with the CIPC, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, I think is what it stands for. I mean, but their direction or their mission or whatever you call it is to essentially look at all the capital budgets of all the different departments and obviously, I guess, evaluate them and provide impact. So they wanted to understand how the capital campaign was funding various projects and how we potentially could fund other projects. So I can send a summary to the group over, but meeting went pretty well. And I think both groups have an understanding of what the other group does. So that's a good start.
Mhm.
We have, I don't know if you recall, the dedication plaque needed some edits because the original one had some errors in it. The capital campaign funded that. I think the plaque is ready, right, Dana? It's just a
No.
matter of getting it installed.
No, may I?
Yep, that's the only other piece I had. So you can finish
Okay.
up.
No.
Nope.
You need to unmute.
I know I have to do it with my,
There you go.
actually, that is being, that's being worked on. It was taken off the wall. And so the wall can be prepared so it can be used. The wall has to be fixed. That may require painting or plastering. I have to figure that out or see if Beth has anything comment on that. We don't have to discuss that now. But no, all of our dedication plaques and the library dedication plaque, which we agreed to help and just do and take over so it would get done properly. That is being done in conjunction with all the other plaques. So most likely we are looking at a date like the third week in January for completion of all that stuff. So I've been, Doug and I have had some brief conversations about that, but depending on how the schedule goes and the possibilities, we were considering having a donor party to just announce, just to finally show everybody all the dedication plaques in the library, or they're really donor appreciation or recognition plaques. So, and the donor wall, which is in the lobby. So we're hoping to do some kind of donor event party. And then depending how COVID works out and all of that, I would think that we'd have like one or two more smaller parties. It's just we haven't been able to do them. So now hopefully we can. So that's what's happening right now. We also have another list that we're working on of stuff that we have to do, that are projects that we still have not completed.
All right. Well, it'd be wonderful to see that plaque finished and then can move on to the celebrations. So that sounds good.
Sounds
All
good.
right. All right. Thank you, Doug and Dana, for that. Beth, we have you down for the Friends update. I don't know if you know that. The look on your face, I'm like,
No, I'm going, what's next? I should have pulled up the agenda. Is it my
no
turn?
problem.
My turn again. I did not attend the November meeting. I was in rehearsals for a concert. I can tell you that they came out, excuse me, for Grafton Celebrates the Holidays. They had book bundles, they had bookmarks, they had notepads and pens, Lego kits. Their table seemed busy when I went by. I'm really appreciative that they were there as a presence. The bundles are staying out right now. They're on display right in front of our glass display case, which has some of their other things for sale in it too. So we hope that we get some more business for them through the holiday giving season. Friends membership is a great gift. They will be taking donations starting January 25th, which is midweek. It's a Wednesday. And what we're doing is setting aside half of the community room to start taking books and materials in for them to start sorting through. And then I think the following week they'll get the whole room so they can put out their tables and start setting up. And the book sale is February Sorry, my calendar only goes through January.
Yeah.
I believe it is like the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, right around there.
Mhm.
Now,
Okay.
so we're giving up the space for 2.5 to 3 weeks so that they can take in donations and have things to sell.
Mhm. Okay.
Their
All
next
right.
meeting,
And I'm assuming it's already on the calendar, so we don't have to move anybody.
yeah, we block. I said that, if you know now the fall dates, like now's the time to put
Yeah.
those in. Yeah, I think like gum ukulele might have to play up in the historic reading room.
Mhm.
Maybe not if it starts, I don't know. We are starting to get some block bookings, so I've been, paying attention to that
Mhm.
as well, but I think so far it'll work out. So,
Okay.
yeah, the hard thing, you just have to triple check the calendar because it will allow as an admin, if you block out like a bunch of days together, it may not show up every day on the calendar. It's like at the top of the calendar.
Mhm.
So we just have to be very careful. And that's part of why, like, generally staff are not booking community room A and B. It's Debbie and I who will do the screwing up of that room. Or not, mostly me. I'm the one guilty of going, oh, shoot, that was double booked. Let's put somebody in the 10-seat conference room.
Mhm.
The next Friends meeting, I think full board meeting and member meeting is Tuesday, January 17th at 7:30 on Zoom. And I'm just, watching for agenda items. It's pretty far away. Feels far.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the next one. So if a volunteer from the board could attend,
Mhm.
that's great. And they have set a date, I believe, for the egg hunt. I don't have it in front of me, but we are trying to get on to, think a little bit further ahead. I believe they're working with Sarah on selling summer reading program t-shirts for next year's summer reading program, because the artwork is often really great and families
Mhm.
ask, where can I buy that? And the answer's always been, you can't. But now they're gonna be able to sell them at a small profit to make some money. So it's progress.
Wonderful. All
Yeah.
right. Anyone, anything else, Beth? Oh, Dana?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was talking with Carrie Hogan of the Friends, and she told me that they had made $600 during Grafton celebrates the holidays. So just wanted to add that.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. Beth, anything new with COVID-19?
No,
Okay, and I know we did not have a walkabout this month. John Stevens is not here about the cabinet. Do you know what's going on with that?
That was going to be one of my questions to Beth. Because I missed the building committee, but it sounds like there was some discussion about it at the building committee. I know there was an issue with the Bob Berger, right, with the building inspector.
yeah. So Mr. Berger, who's our building inspector, said that the cabinet, if we place it where it's like ideal for it to go, because it would be framed by some woodwork, and we spent some money to put an electrical outlet in a specific location that was designated, then it blocks a sign for the electrical room door, and is high enough and wide enough that it also blocks some emergency or strobe like type emergency lighting.
Mhm.
So he said, you can't bring it there, and it's fine where it is at the municipal center. So the historic commission asked the fire marshal, who has some purview over emergency lighting and signage and that kind of thing, to come in and take a look. And he said, oh, well, just move it over. And my response was, the thing is, like, our building program that we wrote to get the grant has a projection to increase the number of magazines and periodicals that are in that room over the period of 20 years that the grant pays for. And I need that space for growth of the library's collection. And the mission of the library is not to host ephemera and town history, but to provide a circulating collection to the town. I still don't want it to go there. John said, I know you don't, but so we have one entity saying it's fine and can go in that room, and another one saying, no, it can't, and they're not talking to each other. So we invited John to come and speak with the Board of Trustees, because you are the stewards of this building, not me.
Mhm.
But
Now-
I'm suspecting that with my being out sick for a week, and us, Debbie and I, not putting our heads together to even get out like the agenda and the minutes to the board, And Evan only showing up, I think, because I texted him and said, did you get the link to the meeting that you're on the agenda for? I know that we talked about December 14th with John, but probably did not send him an invitation or an agenda. And that is, I will take responsibility for not getting that information out.
All right. As far as hierarchy goes, who's higher, the historic commission or the fire chief?
I would say the
I would
building.
think that, I would think the building inspector or / fire chief.
And
Yeah.
But can you
It's
just
the-
answer a quick clarification? Did
Yeah.
the fire chief confirm that the strobe was too close to the top of the cabinet?
he came when I was here and looked at it with me and said, oh yeah, I can't go there. But then went and talked to historic commission and said, oh, you just have to move it over. So
Well, I meant in the place we want it. It seemed like that strobe was okay even where we wanted the cabinet, but obviously the fire marshal or fire person knows.
Mhm.
So
I'm getting conflicting information.
it's the two of them then. It's the fire versus the building. They're the ones that are responsible, right? Okay.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so Beth, I guess, do we have the fire and the building person try to come to a meeting together to decide this, or do we just take a vote on what at some point after, getting more information, or I guess, what do you see as the path forward with this?
I think get everybody in the same room makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Or at least
Yeah,
on the same Zoom call?
Zoom room, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Doug?
think we want to move. I don't know. Am I always supposed to be raising my hand?
Yeah.
If I'm looking, if no one else looks like they're talking, I'm going to start talking.
Yeah.
I agree. We don't want to move this cabinet in front of one of those shelves. I mean, those shelves are
No.
built in. They've been there forever. We don't want to cover one of those up. So I'd rather stick it where we think it should go and move the strobe up a foot if that would solve the problem. But as Karen said, we need to get everybody in the same call for 10 minutes.
So the location where they want the cabinet to go currently has no shelving because it's where
Right.
Lula was, where we ripped out built-ins. I still have those wood slats. And we were supposed to, as part of the project, supposed to get replicated built-in shelving that the architect put in a plan and then did not execute because it was like an after the fact discussion. But at some point, we will need to buy or procure or install shelving to grow that collection, which is as of today maxed out. We cannot add any new magazines, newspapers, because there's no space. We're out of room, out of shelving. So
Now-
what's space now, is a cart and a credenza and other loose furniture that might be able to be moved around, but
Mhm.
sticking a weights and measures cabinet in there for any period of time prohibits us from being able to eventually house and grow the
Mhm.
collection, which is
Which is part of the grant.
part
Yeah,
of it's also in our long range plan to increase the
Right.
collection.
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, Doug had mentioned moving the strobe light. Is that an option?
It doesn't solve the problem of we do not have enough space to
Oh.
house library materials going forward into the future in that room. And there
Oh,
is,
okay.
we don't have wall space. There is no other place in this building to stick a cabinet that's 5 feet wide by 2.5 feet deep by 8.5 feet tall.
Oh, I didn't know it was that big. That's huge.
You can go to the
Uh,
municipal center and look at it.
Yeah, Dana?
That was my question. Is it still in the municipal room, municipal office? Okay, building.
Next to
Because I think we have to be very clear on how big, tall it is, that we have measured it. So if anyone sees it, they can see what's going on.
I can send a picture. I have.
Yeah, but
taken a picture of it.
when Beth is there with other individuals looking at it.
Mhm.
It hasn't been moved, which is, I think, good. I don't know. I guess we just have to.
Mhm.
Do we have the authority to vote on it and
Mhm.
do something about this?
It feels
Because
like-
one of the things is, I did read all the long range plans call about the magazine, about all of that increasing a lot, the number of piece of collection. So that's a really valid point. And the library is supposed to work for 20 years.
Well, I guess another caveat would be, and what I thought might come from this meeting is you could agree to take it for a period of time until such time as we want to add additional items to our library collection, because I feel like we have to prioritize.
But
library-
then we still have the
Yeah.
problem with the strobe light and the electrical closet.
Once you take it, Beth, it will never leave. It's very heavy. It's a lot of work.
I guess-
Once it's in the library, it's in the library for good.
And I guess another issue is I'm concerned that I agreed to take it and I didn't have permission or authority to do that as the director, because really it would have been the trustee's role to say yes or no to that kind of request.
Yeah.
It was 5 years ago. I mean,
I mean, yeah, so I think, thanks for letting us know about this, but I think it does sound like, I don't know what other people think, that we just can't take it. There's too many issues. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I mean, I think if it could go in that empty wall space,
Yeah.
I mean, well, I should say first, it seems like it really belongs in a museum or some other location than the library. And it's a cool piece, but it's not really library-ish. It's more like industrial, right? An industrial antique piece. But if we were going to take it and it could fit in that space and we move the little light strobe, I think at least we can figure out if that's an option.
and to be fair, the empty wall space is only that there are no built-in shelves at the moment. There is furniture on that perimeter of the room in those spaces now that will have to be relocated somewhere, and it's
okay.
all dark wood. The rest of the library is blonde modern wood, and we kept the historic room a different color, so anything you displace is now not going to match. Like really weird.
So why don't I mean, I can take it on, have a conversation with John, and I'll have a conversation with Beth, and then come to this board next month and say, we're going to deny accepting it, or we're going to try to accept it under these conditions. Does that make sense, Beth, if we can push it off a month?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yep, and I would say probably also, include the building inspector and the
Yeah.
fire chief also, because we don't want to end up moving it to the library for the fire chief to say, you have to get that out of here. All right, okay. All right, thank you everyone for your input on that. It seems like a very sticky situation. A lot of different things involved. All right. Next on the agenda is the 2023 action plan. Beth?
Sure. I'm not looking for a lot of discussion. This is overdue.
Yeah.
And I've talked in many meetings about how overextended and short-staffed we are, and how we're not able to implement new things, and have even been dropping things like put notarizations and passports on hiatus because we just can't take anything else on. We're barely covering our desks. So I did add get the 3D printer up and running by the end of next year as an activity. That's the next December 2023, Doug. We just have one part to print. So, and there's like a few updated things, and I also removed things that we were doing, like 1,000 books before kindergarten. I feel like check, we're doing that through Beanstack. So there are some changes. I forget if the version I gave you was highlighted in yellow. I hope that it was. And then I also provided like last year's, so that you could go back and forth and compare if you wanted. But I'm really just hoping to get a, yeah, sounds good, send it to MBLC so we continue to be eligible for, grant money.
Okay. Yeah, and that was sent out. All right, so does anyone have any questions for Beth about that? No? Okay. So I think we can take a vote on that, Beth, and then we'll be able to get that off of your to-do list. Right, so I'll start. Karen, I, Doug?
Doug, aye.
Motion.
Point of order.
Motion first, yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
motion on the table.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. All right, then someone make a motion, please.
I move we approve the 2023 action plan.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second,
All right, any discussion? All right, so I'll start. Karen, I, Dana,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Doug.
Guy.
All right, declare that passed. Right, Beth, thank you for putting that together. It looks like here next, you have a funding request for Mass Library Association, that $170 yearly membership fee, correct?
Yeah, I believe that is for my membership renewal. I usually go to the conference every year and they have all kinds of, support and continuing education things.
Mhm. Yep, Marty,
State aid.
I move that we approve that expenditure
all right, do I hear a second?
From state aid.
from
Oh,
state aid.
From
excuse me.
state. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the matter? No, all right, so Karen, I, Doug,
Guy.
Marty,
Aye.
and Dana.
Aye.
Okay, so thank you. So Beth, you can have that paid. Next up is the policy update, and John was not able to be with us this evening, so he sent me a synopsis of what they are working on. So permit me, I'm just going to kind of, read some of the stuff from his notes. As far as the draft art display policy, they're waiting on a meeting with legal to move forward with that. The security camera policy update, they need clarification for legal on public records requests. New policies they're working on is the meeting room facility rental policy. They are, and I think Beth had alluded to this, they're attempting to allow up to 4 bookings at any one time for organizations. So that would cover 4 weekly meetings or 4 monthly meetings, that sort of thing. And there was discussion about whether or not to allow groups or individuals who have reserved the community room after hours to set up while the library is still open. And so right now that is still under discussion. Allowing them to do so would be at the discretion of the library director or a designee. And Beth is checking with legal regarding charging during operating hours. And the final policy they're working on is the parking policy. And it's stated in the code of conduct, patrons are liable for damage to library property, which does include the charging stations, but it can also be stated in the parking policy as well. Damage should be turned over to insurance, but the issue with the current damage, I think everyone's kind of seen they're leaning a little bit. They've been unable to identify the person or persons who hit the charging stations. And Beth, let's see, it's on your to-do list to check with the town to see if we own the charging stations or are they leased? Do we know that at this point?
I
No.
don't know. I have been out and haven't followed up.
Okay, and it's also on Beth's to-do list, sorry, Beth, that she's gonna check the old parking policy and the grant provisions about allowing others to park in the lot. And we may just leave the policy as is and enforce as needed, such as on different event days, since we currently have no permanent signage about the parking. So does anyone else have anything to add about that policy update? No? All right. Thank you for that. Next on the list is Beth again for the director's report and statistics.
I just finished it today and I haven't emailed it out. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We were open 23 days in November and had 5,335 visitors. We had 42 live and 27 passive programs, which accommodated 617 attendees. The next time you're in, please do stop in the children's room to check out their amazing calendar that's on their glass wall. The STEM project, which is an October pumpkin that's in an enclosed plastic jug that's beautifully fermenting. No, it doesn't smell, and it looks really cool.
I know, I'm like,
Search for hidden wooden seasonal. I think there's elves and nutcrackers. So there's like a passive program that's a hide and seek kind of a thing where they can find these ornaments, earn a sticker, and then hide them for somebody else to find. So the teen room has had drop-in stuff in the makerspace ongoing. MBLC is having us track programming a little bit differently for our ARIS report, which is one of the statistical things we fill out to get our state aid money. So we're differentiating now between things that happen live, things that happen virtually, and things that are, we put this out, let's see if we can track how many people participated. So all our numbers were a little bit low. We sort of have these natural cycles of, here's a time of the year we're busier, and here's a time of the year we're not as busy. So the numbers are lower than October, but not so significantly or in any kind of a concerning way. We had 133 like public meeting room bookings, which were everything from scout groups meeting. We have a Tai Chi group that meets regularly to do their Tai Chi. We have both Democratic and Republican town groups meeting on different nights. I kind of hope they would be like in meeting room A and B at the same time, but so actually the Republican Town Committee was the first one to book 4 in a row. So they're all set through April. To like private tutoring, people coming in to do, Zoom meetings or study for exams, kids doing study group. Blackstone Valley Tech had either a robotics group or a drone group, I think, that was meeting. We also do some impromptu stuff. We had a group of homeschoolers come in because they had no heat at their house and it was 32 degrees. And it was 60 in the meeting room, but let me set up the cocoa and the tea for you, and sure, you can go ahead and use our space. So we do allow, we're now allowing the block booking. We're now allowing drop-in. 133 bookings for 298 participants, plus another 27 meeting room uses that might have been like, staff having a staff meeting or using the room just to test out the technology. I only have 3 documented low coverage instances when we had to pull somebody from another department. And I'm not sure if that means that we haven't had as much issue with people being out or if we just forgot to write it down in November. I don't think we had to call in temps very often. I think we were able to mostly cover from within the building, which is good. I already talked about budget. I did have 2 architects, including David King, who worked on the cupola project in the past, come out to take a look at the cupola. And the next step is they want to create a proposal to bring in a crane and get really close and look at the outside. He actually went up in the inside to look at it. And I think they have an idea of what the problem is, but also want to look at the outside. So he's going to send a proposal for getting a crane on site to take a close look at the cupola. And Evan's suggestion was we could wrap it to prevent any further damage or leaking. And that can, stave off at least for a couple of years until we find funding to make some repairs to it. So I asked for the proposal. If we're going to get a crane, we might as well wrap it at the same time. So I asked him to quote both pieces. And then after they do that, and I don't know where that money's going to come from. After they do that piece, then they can give us an estimate for actual, restoration or renovation, which will help us when we go to apply for the Mass Historic Commission grant. So far, I should knock on wood, it hasn't leaked again. I understand the leaking is a result of flashing, but that there is also like some rotting that's happening. And we just really want to, cap it or nip it in the bud ASAP. I already talked about construction and IT and COVID. We had 21 volunteers this month who put in 66 hours. I'm going to be working with a bar mitzvah student who has to do some volunteer time, and he's going to work with me on some historical documents. We have a lot of things that have been scanned by Historical Society that we want to try and get up onto the Internet Archive and make available 24/7 instead of just when you walk into their building. We have a lot of plans, and we did buy from some of the last of our, remember the grant we got for archival stuff, the Shrab grant from like 6 or 7 years ago. We bought some tubes to put all the old plans and maps that we have on site into. So we're finally going to get those cataloged and preserved. So he's going to work on that. And then we have another, I think an adult volunteer who is going to work on instructions for grant funded visibility software that we got. So things that zoom in and magnify for people with low vision. So that's we're looking forward to that for January. We're still doing outreach to Crescent Manor. Bookwagon had 8 participants who checked out 29 items and requested 12 new items, and someone got a library card. And they delivered 19 items to homebound patrons in November. Heidi did a library scarecrow, which participated first on the Common in the Recreation Department's event, and then went to the Community Harvest Projects Fall Festival, where the library won the scarecrow contest.
Wow.
Amazing scarecrow.
Ah, great.
And then some of you went on Monday, I think it was the 14th of November, here to our Willard House lecture with Robert C. Cheney, who talked about some of the treasures of the museum, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary, and celebrated the clock that we have on temporary loan.
And Beth, I think you also need to mention that was basically standing room only, and we were pulling chairs out of the closet.
We offered free wine and cheese, so we had 55 people attend. It was really good. History stuff goes over pretty well. So, I said to Heidi, we need to do more of this kind of thing. And Mr. Cheney would be very happy to come back. It's a wonderful partnership that we have that goes all the way back to probably Amanda Derber doing story time on site at Willard House, where they would pick an object and she would tie in a story to the object, and then they would take a tour and hear the clocks. And so Sarah Bannister's doing that program now. It's going strong. I mentioned Children's Room, lots of compliments on their calendar. They did November outreach to all the preschools, Busy Bee Academy. There's been an ongoing issue with the train manipulative that's been on the wall, so we finally took it down completely. We're hoping to put it in the family nursing room if it won't interfere with any accessibility. So we're going to lower the counter in there and put in the changing table, and then decide if we can also put the train piece back in. You'll notice if you go in, the computers have been reconfigured because we had a kid browsing some inappropriate websites. So we decided we needed to be able to see all of the screens from the librarian's desk, and implemented some stronger sign-in procedures. And we're not doing any safe search filtering. We don't do that in the library, but we did put in something that wipes out browsing history, so that if somebody does something inappropriate, we don't notice it. It's not going to pop up for the next patron. So we took care of that. But the downside of all that is that we now, we have these nice tables that were fairly expensive, and we were supposed to have, computers on maybe 2 of them. And now there's computers on like 4 or 5 or 6 of them. So kids who are coming in to do homework, to browse, to read, to do something library related, there aren't surfaces, like places for them to sit and use a table in the children's room. And so at some point, we're going to have to find another solution, whether it's a computer counter or bar, kind of like we have upstairs, or specific computer tables and chairs to free up, like essentially study tables for the children's room. Like that's just part of, long range planning or capital planning for us. So the children's room staff is very flexible. And very good at pivoting, but I'm always also thinking about, okay, now what? We solved one problem, but we've created another. So how are we going to mitigate this? And then sewing camp has been hugely successful. Cindy's been running it, and somebody asked if we could have a beginner's one for kids, and I think they're going to start that up in January. I've been getting to cover in the teen room. Usage is picking up. We've gotten signed behavior contracts from about 180 kids.
Oh,
Most of them can't sign their names. So that's been very interesting. It's like, well, put your first initial and then your last initial, and then just kind of scribble, and we'll count that. And we've been they're trainable moments too. Like, don't wait, you have to read it before you sign it. What are you agreeing to? Let's go over it. And it's been, for me at least, a way to get to know some of the kids. And I saw a really nice post on one of the Grafton Facebook groups that said, my son so-and-so goes to the library. I really want to connect with the other parents of the kids who are hanging out with him and going to the library. Like, our kids are friends, and now we want to be friends too. And it was just like a really nice kind of community thing to see. There's still been some behavioral incidents, most of which have been quickly nipped in the bud with, hey, you know, I see you're running around with your phone and that's actually specifically listed right here in this thing you just signed 10 minutes ago. What are you doing? You know, good try, but come back tomorrow. And one kid at one point did come back and try to angle to get back in the building for the day. And I said, listen, no, you can come back tomorrow. It's just how it's going to be. We'd love to have you back and we'll see you tomorrow. If I'm not in there every day, it's hard to then do follow-up. So the next time I cover, if I recognize somebody who I had to toss, then I have that conversation. So good to see you back. Do you remember that last time I was working and you were doing that thing? And they're like, yeah, not going to do it again, right? No, great. And we did have one parent who had said maybe last year, my kid is acting up. You call me. I want to know. So we had a kid who got a little out of hand. Sarah Slocum emailed the parent, had a great discussion. Kid came back and apologized. So things are much calmer. We had set a limit of 22 people in the room at a time. And we haven't come close to hitting it. Sometimes there'll be 12 or 14, but it feels manageable. We're able to get them to know the kids a little bit better. They're using the space much more appropriately. They're coming in and they're doing the craft. They're writing on the whiteboard. They're watching a movie and getting their snacks. So it's much more tenable. And I would like to, I still haven't had a chance to meet with teen services to decide moving forward, like at what point do we not need to do this anymore? And we can just have a verbal exchange of, we're so glad you're here. You're doing that thing. You can't do it. Try again tomorrow. So we will see what the new year brings. They did note in their report that teen services serves grades 6 to 12. And they do need 2 people in the room generally to run a program, because you need somebody managing the signups for the room and making sure the contracts are signed, and then somebody to run the program. And they only have overlap right now on Monday and Tuesday. 6th graders don't get out of school until 2:55. So that really only leaves about a half an hour to run any kind of programming before somebody has to go take their dinner break. So we will be revisiting that next month to see how to get them more support so that they can do some more programming, because they do have really great ideas. And we have a programming survey, and we know when the kids would prefer to come. And in January, we will try to staff accordingly. Thursday nights was a winner. So partly because of Sarah's school schedule, but also because of this programming survey, we will probably switch to doing some teen programming on Thursday night next year. What else? Borrower services is busy with network requests, new borrowers, managing meeting rooms, sometimes fighting with our self-check. If we don't get response from Biblioteca on the issues that we've been having, I email our sales representative directly, and that escalates things in the chain, and then we get more response. Borrower services is offering 2 programs in December. Sandia is doing book folding, which are cute things that are seasonal and can be given as a gift, but not necessarily Christmassy, which is very nice. She had the first one, I think, last night. Maybe it was last week. I don't know. It was recent, and said it went well. Reference services answered 273 reference questions, hosted 140 on-site computer sessions. We had 945 database uses. So that's everything from downloadable audio and video to tutor.com to, I think Bookflix maybe didn't get any hits last month, but Ancestry and all the Gale databases continue to be popular. Eric's been doing lots of weeding of the nonfiction collection. That's when we cull things that are old, dated, superseded, looking yucky, are from the 70s and maybe still going out, but maybe there's a better book that we could replace it with. So that's been a big project. And because he's new, he doesn't have the vested interest in the collection that Heidi and I, who maybe did some of those purchases, not the ones from the 70s, but he's a fresh pair of eyes, and he can be a little bit more ruthless. The number one way to get your circulation to go up is to get rid of the dead wood, the unattractive, old, ugly books that are just sitting and taking up space on the shelf and no longer serving a purpose. So he's been going gung-ho on that. We had our ukulele 101 session that concluded in mid-November, led by Eric Gurin, who runs Gum Jam. And he's going to run for Apple Tree Arts as a paid program, a strumming workshop. starting in January, I think. So like we're kind of cross promoting that. He did a holiday music session today that I had to leave early to come to our meeting tonight. So they're still singing away, I think. They were cookies. Heidi ran, I think, 6 different book groups. If you haven't checked out our displays lately, they are really amazing. They're not just books. People are putting, decorations and signage around it to make them look really attractive. And it seems to be really nice partnerships too between different departments contributing to make the displays really attractive. And I noticed one of them had a little sign that said, yes, you can take these books out, so that patrons wouldn't just look at them and think they were pretty, but no, we want these materials to move and you should help yourself and check them out. Cynthia, our new cataloger, provided a technical services report that we added almost 800 items in November. We weeded out 171. She did original cataloging. She sent requests to the CAT Center for original cataloging. And she met with our Ingram book vendor representative and pulled in the department head so we could try to streamline and get some consistency for our book labels. If you don't know, we have like 86 categories of materials at the Grafton Library, like J picture books and J graphic novels and adult graphic novels and teen graphic. Like there's a lot of types of media. And the whole reason the book sorting thing works the way it does is because we've got this master list, and the computer system knows to either judge from the barcode what category the item is or what format, and also from the label. So we're trying to unify all of our labels, and that was like kind of a heroic effort that she undertook. And we're also adding a new vendor, Baker and Taylor, because they'll give us a better discount on nonfiction. So she's just been working really hard on setting up carts and setting up accounts so that things come in pretty ready to just get scanned and get right on the shelf or out to the patron who's requested it. And she's doing a great job. We have been in the habit of purchasing some things from Amazon because we couldn't get them from a library vendor, and Amazon is phasing out its like credit card department. So we're now looking for other vendors for video games. So she's going to be adding Crimson Multimedia for us in the new year, so we can have games come in for all the different consoles, all cataloged and ready to go, which is exciting. What else? I have yes and no log things. People asked for Saturday story time and beginner sewing classes. We're going to add those. In case you missed it, we had temporarily a unauthorized donation of a train table that showed up in the children's room one day, and I looked at it and went, this doesn't go with any of our new stuff. It is scuffed. I don't know what the material is. I don't know if it's commercial grade. And I thought we were keeping this space clear for other purposes. You can't keep it. So lots of comments on the November log were about the train table, and people miss the train table and when is the train table coming back. So in the meantime, we've got a rug that's got like a train and car road path design on it that kids can play with. And we're looking for a commercial library vendor that produces something in the colors of the room. And it's an educational material. So Sarah and I are working to replace it with something comparable and appropriate. Lots of people still who come to children's programming asking why we're not open at 9 o'clock. 2 questions this month. In past months, it's been 10 or 15, but only 2 documented this time around. 8 compliments on the new building, 5 complaints about temperature, 1 compliment about temperature from somebody who's having hot flashes and said it's great that it's 60 degrees in this building. Complaints about the lack of book donation, which we will be bringing back the end of January. Compliments on the book bundles, complaints about the hours, meeting room compliments and complaints. These things like balance each other out. We had people who are very happy that they could get the meeting spaces, and then others, I think somebody from Upton who wasn't sure of the process. Only Blackstone Valley libraries and Grafton card numbers are able to reserve in advance. But for the most part, if anybody calls day of and we have space available, we'll book the meeting room for them. So it's not like strictly limited to Grafton residents, but sometimes there's that sense. And then somebody who was dissatisfied that the room wasn't set up the way that she thought it would be when she walked into the room. It is the responsibility of the convener to do the setup because we don't have custodial to do it. But once she realized that no, like the tables were actually out, she just had to arrange them and they were very easy to move and everything was light. Then she apologized for having a negative attitude at the staff member who had the misfortune of telling her, no, we don't set up for you. And we smoothed everything over. So it had a happy ending. My favorite comment was about the display of lost water bottles, which Debbie did. They thought it was so great. If you missed it, you can go back and look at the photos on Facebook, but it was a very clever way to clear out our lost and found. So those are the highlights. It's a busy month.
All right. Thank you, Beth. Anyone have it? Doug?
Yeah, lots of highlights. That's great.
Yes.
Two quick questions. One is, well, no, first is I'm glad to hear that the teen space is back to life and everything. So it sounds like it's getting good use. I mean, that's obviously one of those populations that it must be loving the new library.
I want to say the staff are doing a really good job handling the kids too and interacting. Yeah.
Great. Nice job on that then. The library of things. I mean, I've wandered through that and just amazed at all the stuff is in there. Do you track like how much of that stuff comes and goes? I mean, it'd be kind of interesting. It seems like there's a lot of great things in there that people might not be aware of.
Yeah, it's lumped under equipment. I don't provide a breakdown, but I could. It's all in a spreadsheet. You know, how many books versus how many DVDs. But equipment, tools like library of things is all kind of lumped in together. So you wouldn't have a sense of, without digging individually, like how many times did a board game go out versus like the metal detector.
But you find that people browse that area and are aware of it and everything. That's good. That's great.
Maybe not enough. So one of the things Borrower Services came up with was pulling out one thing a month to feature. So it's like right kind of by the desk as you come up the stairs, so that people are aware of some of the unique things that we have. And then those like will go out. So right now we're highlighting sensory kits because of the comment from Christy Proctor, who, when we were talking about people with different abilities and people with autism and being appealing to all age groups, she's like, you have all these manipulatives in the children's room. Why don't you have them for adults who might want to play with something while they're studying? So this is my newest edition, which has to be cataloged. You might remember this from your childhood. It's like a stress relief.
I do actually.
So these are like in-house use. There's little, fidgets and puzzles. So you can take like a whole kit of them and have them at a table as you're sitting in your Zoom meeting or, working on your homework or whatever.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I have to say, I liked the email. They now have that QR code on all the receipts that leads you right to the event calendar. That was a great idea too.
Yeah. Well, I think that was probably I forget if it was Aaron or Doug's suggestion. He said, like QR codes had a moment and they went away for a long time, but once you didn't need a separate app on your phone to scan it and have it leap to a website, they became a lot more widespread again. So it's possible. I don't want to give miscredit. I think Allison Kusher made it for us and then Allie got it onto their receipts and all departments are putting it on their programming. And so that we didn't have to keep creating new ones. We just have one link and it goes to the calendar and then you have to scroll to find the event, but hopefully you'll stumble across other events. We had a comment on the Yes log about, thank you for having a printout of your calendar, or thank you for having the children's calendar. It's hard when I go online, it looks like there's just a lot of meetings. So I think people don't realize, maybe even staff don't realize, at the very top of the screen, you can click, and instead of showing all the things on the calendar, you can pick just story time or just meetings or, just friends events. And it'll call out some of those things that like you don't care about, like that somebody has a tutoring room booked. So we're going to try and make sure staff are trained in that and then communicate that a little bit better to the public. But like I'm tearing my hair out over when somebody makes a meeting room reservation, staff, you have to edit it and like hide the person's name and make sure the room is reflected, but also categorize it as a meeting or a story time or whatever it is. And put in the audience. Is it all ages? Because at some point I want to be able to say this percentage of meeting room use was teens, this percentage was adults, this was all ages. And if things aren't, if we code things in the right way, then I can run my reports better and it becomes easier to search and find things in the calendar too, for staff and the public. Back to library of things. I have had some feedback that people are looking for the free hotspots that we had available through a grant for almost a year and a quarter through MBLC. The funding stopped, so we discontinued the program. We had 5 hotspots. We kept 1 for in-house use. And over the course of 15 months, we had 60 circulations.
Mhm.
And they each went out for a week. So, we should have had 3 times that much, which makes me feel like they weren't really used to the extent that they should have been. And people tended to take them, to my understanding, for vacation. And they were really intended as a low income program to bridge a gap. So I said that I wasn't willing to spend the money on it or continue it when the circulations were not actually that high. But that people who felt strongly, like if I hear strongly from patrons that it was really helpful to them, then we will investigate funding to bring it back.
Mhm.
But I do have at least one patron who's very dissatisfied that we're not offering it anymore. I do know in some communities, they got a whole bunch and gave them to the food bank and let the food bank in town distribute them to low income families. And it never even went through the library at that point. So. Yeah, there was a complaint. So I said, send me a letter, send me an email to document it, and we'll look into it. If I think if we do get them, we'll only get 2, 1 for in-house and 1 to loan out. We won't do 5, as they are expensive.
Mhm. Do those count as what is it, education supplies or something like
It
that?
does count as educational materials. And again, like didn't budget for it. We had them and been paying for them and they never went out. And then even during the pandemic, they really didn't go out very much,
Mhm.
which made me think, especially it felt like if there was a need, that would have been the time, kids who were doing school on Zoom and parents working from home, or people who were now on unemployment and couldn't afford or didn't want to have the extra expense of
Mhm.
their internet cable bill. That would have been the time for use and requests to skyrocket.
Mhm.
It didn't. It wasn't until we moved back into the building that all of a sudden we started, they started this program, and then we started getting circulations on them.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
and judging from, we used to have, it's in the old building, we did have occasions where we had 6 computers for adults, and we had to figure out who'd been on the longest and tell them to get off so the next person could have a turn. I have not had to do that or heard of that happening once since we reopened a year and a half ago. And we only have 4 adult internet computers at the moment. So while there is still a digital divide and we want to do everything we can to decrease it locally, it does not seem like, and maybe it's because of the pandemic or because of our move or because of being closed, but it does not seem like the library is the go-to anymore for technology for the majority of the population.
Mhm. Okay, any other questions for Beth about that? No, seeing none. Any public comment here? No. All right, so our next meetings, the policy subcommittee meeting is meeting on Wednesday, January 4th, 7 p.m. on Zoom. And our next board meeting is going to be Wednesday, January 25th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And as we were talking about just before this meeting started, the agendas are on the New Towns website. And when you click on PDF, it opens something that just says the date on it. Click on the date, then it opens the agenda. Learned that tonight, so.
We'll make a point to get it out ahead of time for January.
Yeah, no problem. Doug?
Just a question on the policy. So you mentioned all the comments from John earlier. Are we going to see a copy of those, or are any of them up for vote next month? Well, if so, it'd be great to see them in advance, of course.
Right, yeah, I agree. I would like, if there are any policy committee things that are going up for a vote, yeah, we definitely do need to see those beforehand. And I guess my request for the policy subcommittee would be to have anything that is brought before this board to be ready for a vote.
Got it.
That sort of thing, it's ready, it's gone through legal, it's gone through everybody it needs to go through, and where the final stop.
Sure. We've tried to send out the ones we're going to be discussing a
Yeah.
week in advance, so we can get that feedback and incorporate it into our discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have done a really great job with the
Yes.
policies.
I-
Don't get me
I
wrong.
Who knew there were so many, you know? And you just keep adding to them, so, all right.
I guess I make a motion to adjourn then.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? All right, Karen, I, Dana,
I.
Marty,
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
All right, I hereby declare this meeting closed.